right, let's talk a little bit about committees. Committees within Congress. Like we've mentioned before, it seems like a while ago, but we did mention it. Committees make up most of the work within Congress. Just think of yourself doing a big like group project. It's pretty natural to say, Jimmy, you do the first section. You know, Carl, you're gonna do this part. I'm gonna make the poster. You're gonna do this. And that's exactly what committees allow Congress to do, is divide up the work. Committees also allow, whether it's a representative or senator, they allow them to be specialists. I can focus on certain things like taxes or energy. I can get really good at something. Most of the work, like I said, is done in committees. We're going to talk. There's 4 different kinds we're going to talk about. The first one is our standing committees. Now, kind of going forward, if we use the blanket term committee, we're talking about standing committees. We can kind of standing committees are permanent. So from each term of Congress, each session, those committees don't have to be reestablished. They go from 2, 4, 6, 8 years down the line. They're still going to be there. Standing committees also have a very broad policy agenda, like energy or taxes or agriculture. So some big overall topic. So standing committees are what we're going to talk about when we talk about committees. Select committees, right there. Select committees are temporary. And select committees are set up entirely to solve some sort of big problem. In the 1950s, there were select committees on organized crime. So they investigated, like, hey, how big of an issue is this? Is there a way to get rid of it? Once they solve their problem, they kind of move on. They dissolve their committee, and they no longer exist. We have, and you're going to see like a video about hearings coming up. Select committees have a lot of hearings where they're going to, again, just like anybody else, they're going to call witnesses, and they're going to have the ability to do that. They can use like subpoenas. So subpoenas, if you're not aware, are like a court order saying, hey, you have to come testify. Courts use it all the time. So if you witness a crime, you're like, I don't want to get involved. If you're subpoenaed, you have to go report and you have to go testify. Otherwise, you're breaking the law. So it's kind of a court ordered thing. So members of Congress have the ability to use subpoenas during hearings. So select committees, that's kind of what they do. Like I mentioned, when they solve the problem, or just when their work is done, they move on. Third kind is joint committees. For the first time in 12 years, I'm not going to hear people laugh when I say joint committees, like, oh, you said joint. Joint committees they work together with the House and the Senate. The House and the Senate get together and they'll like research a potential law. I usually give the advice that of any of these committees, this is the least likely one to appear on an AP test. But it kind of bears noting, I suppose. Conference committees we've talked about before. Conference committees very simply make a bill the same, make it uniform. So, for example, if a bill on balancing the budget were to pass in the House of Representatives and then it has to go through the Senate, if the Senate changes that bill and then they pass it, now we have 2 different bills. So how do you know which version to follow? A conference committee would then be constructed between members of the House and the Senate, with members of the House and the Senate, and they take those 2 bills and they'd make one uniform bill and say, like, okay, you're saying this, they're saying that, we're going to come together, make a compromise. Once they do that, it goes back to the House, back to the Senate, and they pass. So one bill, one version is going to go to the president. So those are conference committees. Okay. The other thing people always ask about is, how do you get assigned to committees? Well, you get assigned to committees once you're elected to Congress. They will, usually the majority party is going to send you to a committee. Committees are always made up of the same percentage of your political party as in the greater group. So if 55% of the House of Representatives are Democrats, every committee is going to be made up of 55% Democrats. Your assignment to your committee kind of varies. There are certain committees that are like the really important ones. Appropriations committees are really important to spending money. Ways and Means Committee in the House of Representatives is really important. Taxes. So those are like the high profile. Like if you really have a design on like running for president or advancing your career, you're going to want to get on one of those big ones. Now, sometimes they take where you're from into account. So if I want to get in the Agriculture Committee and I'm from Los Angeles, like that's not, people aren't usually very fired up about that one. But if I'm from somewhere in rural Iowa, all of a sudden my constituents back home are going to love that I'm on the Agriculture Committee. Okay, so assignments committee sometimes a little geographic based. Committee chairs. Every committee has a chairperson from the majority party. So, for example, right now the Democrats are the majority party in 2020. They're the majority party in the House. Every committee chair is going to be a Democrat. In 2020, currently, every chairperson for the committees in the Senate are Republicans because the Republicans are the majority party. So committee chairs are always from the majority party. They operate with something called the seniority rule. So if I have been on that committee the longest from the majority party, I am the chairperson. This is the incentive to get people to stay in one committee and become an expert in what they're doing. Our longtime congressman, a guy by the name of John Dingell, was the committee chairperson for the Energy Committee. And again, he'd been there forever. He served in Congress for like 58 years. Dangling that kind of carrot of being the committee chairperson, which is a really powerful thing, is a way to get people to stay. So that way everybody doesn't try to like lobby to get on the Rules Committee or the Ways and Means Committee having to do with taxes or the Appropriations Committee. You get people to stay on the Agriculture Committee and the Energy Committee and the Education Committee because that chairperson is real high profile and they have a lot of power. So that's a basic quick overview of committees and how they work. If you have any questions, please let me know. Until that, I'll see you in the next video.